All right, so today we're diving deep into James Cameron's Titanic.
Titanic?
Yeah. We got a really in-depth analysis from one of our listeners, and honestly, it's got me thinking,
Huh.
like, how did this film become such a massive phenomenon?
Oh, yeah.
It's been decades, but people are still obsessed with Titanic.
Absolutely.
So, ready to unpack all that?
I am. Yeah.
What makes it tick?
I think one of the most interesting things about Titanic is that it really successfully brings together historical tragedy with, fictional romance.
Right.
Creates this kind of powerful emotional experience
It's true.
that just resonated with so many people around the world.
That's interesting because the analysis we got, it really dug into that, like the idea that Titanic is not just a love story.
Right.
There's a lot more going on.
Yeah.
What do you think makes that approach so effective?
Well, you've got this meticulously recreated ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a symbol of human ambition, ingenuity. And then juxtaposed against that, you have this the stark reality of this disaster.
Yeah.
This reminder that we don't always have control over nature, right?
It's true.
And then on top of all of that, you have Jack and Rose.
Right.
These characters from these totally different worlds who are falling in love as this disaster is about to happen.
I see. So it's like the love story isn't just some side plot.
Right.
It's actually like a way to experience the history.
Exactly.
And through a personal, more emotional lens.
Yeah. You take the sinking of the Titanic,
Mm-hmm.
which for a lot of people,
Yeah.
might just be a things that they learned about in school.
A historical event.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's very personal.
Right.
Because you're seeing this love story unfold
Mm-hmm.
against this really intense backdrop.
Yeah. And you can't talk about that love story without talking about Leo and Kate,
Of course not.
The chemistry was just off the charts.
Yeah.
But what do you think it was about their performances that made those characters really work? Because on paper, Jack and Rose could have been pretty stereotypical,
Oh, yeah.
Like they could fall into those tropes.
Right.
The poor artist, the trapped socialite.
Yeah, Jack, the, penniless artist with a heart of gold.
Yes.
Rose, a trapped socialite.
Yeah.
But both of them bring so much nuance
Right.
to those roles.
I agree.
Think about that scene where he's teaching her to spit.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a small moment, but it really shows you who they are.
Totally.
He's this free spirit and she wants to break free.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I never thought about that scene that way before.
Yeah.
And it's true. She's so much more than just a damsel in distress.
Oh,
she's strong. She's smart.
She's defiant.
Yeah. And you see her struggling with the expectations of her class, her family, this arranged marriage.
And that complexity is what makes it work, Because it's not just a simple infatuation.
Right.
You understand why they connect.
Exactly. It feels
Yes.
real. It's earned. It's believable.
Yeah.
And the analysis also talked about the supporting character.
Oh, for sure.
Adding to this depth.
Yeah.
It's not just Jack and Rose.
Absolutely. Think about Billy Zane as Cal.
Yeah.
He's not just a bad guy. He's he represents something,
Like rigidity.
Yeah, the rigidity, the hypocrisy of the upper class.
A whole system.
Yeah. And then you've got Kathy Bates as Molly Brown.
She's great.
She's
That
fantastic.
resilience.
Yes. And the compassion,
Yeah.
when she helps Jack get ready for dinner.
Yes. That scene.
Such a small thing, but it says so much about her
Yes.
character.
Yeah. And about challenging those boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how even the smaller roles in Titanic add to the whole story.
It's true. It's Cameron created this, tapestry
Yeah.
where every single thread matters.
It's true.
It all adds up to this massive, emotionally resonant film.
And speaking of massive. Yeah.
We've got to talk about the visuals.
Oh, of course.
The spectacle of this film. I mean,
Sure.
the analysis talks about how much attention to detail Cameron had in recreating the ship. The visual effects, especially for 1997, were groundbreaking.
I know.
But for you, what stands out the most? What's
Yeah.
the most impressive thing visually?
I mean, Cameron's dedication to authenticity is amazing, right?
Yeah.
The costumes, the sets,
Yeah.
the ship's layout.
Yeah.
He recreated it meticulously.
Right.
Which just makes that sinking scene all the more powerful.
Wow.
But for me, it's really how he uses all of that to tell the story.
Okay.
That shot of Jack and Rose on the bow,
Oh,
arms outstretched,
iconic.
they're embracing the world.
It's beautiful.
It's just this perfect visual representation of their freedom and the possibilities that seem to be in front of them, in contrast to what's coming.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah. Yeah, it really makes you think about their future and then, and how quickly things can change.
Exactly.
And it makes me think about how Cameron balances those really big, grand scenes with those smaller, more intimate moments.
Right.
The analysis talked about the cinematography, and how well it captures the ship's scale, but also the closeness between Jack and Rose.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, how does he pull that off?
Well, it's Russell Carpenter, the cinematographer.
Okay.
He's so talented.
Yeah.
He gets that Titanic is a story about, like, both the big picture and the personal stuff.
Right.
So you get these sweeping shots of the ship, like when everyone's boarding, you see how huge it is, all the activity.
Yeah.
But then he also focuses on Jack and Rose.
Yeah.
Like their little glances, the way their hands touch.
Yeah.
Close-ups to bring us into their world.
Right. So we're experiencing both the awe of the ship and the intimacy of their relationship.
Yeah. It's really smart filmmaking.
It is. But Titanic also had some controversy about, the historical accuracy.
Right.
The analysis mentions that. Specifically, the way they portrayed J. Bruce Ismay and First Officer Murdoch.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Is it a problem that they changed some things for the film?
It's tricky, right? Because it raises questions about artistic license.
Yeah.
Versus historical responsibility.
Right.
Like Cameron clearly put so much effort into getting the ship right. But he did make some choices about certain characters.
Like Ismay, he's kind of a villain in the movie, right?
Right. He's portrayed as this cowardly guy who only cares about saving himself.
Yeah.
Which is a simplification.
Right. There's probably more to the story.
Yeah. Much more nuanced.
And I remember reading about Murdoch's family. They were really upset about how he was shown in the film.
Absolutely. He's shown taking bribes and acting recklessly during the sinking.
Right.
They felt it was totally inaccurate.
Yeah.
And a misrepresentation of who he really was.
And what he did that night.
Exactly. Cameron actually apologized later.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he said he should have been more careful, more sensitive to the history and the impact on the families.
It's a good reminder that even with fiction, filmmakers have a responsibility to be respectful.
Yeah, to the events and the people involved.
To the truth.
Absolutely.
But even with those inaccuracies, I think Titanic got people interested in the real event again.
Oh, for sure.
Like it made people want to learn more.
Yeah, it definitely brought renewed interest to a historical tragedy.
Totally. And it's amazing how they blend that history with the music.
Oh, the music.
Yeah, we can't forget about that.
That's so iconic.
James Horner's score.
It's incredible.
The analysis talked about those melodies. Oh. And of course, Celine Dion.
Oh, my heart will go on.
Unforgettable.
Yeah, it's like the music adds so much weight to the story.
Yeah. For you, how does the music actually enhance the storytelling?
Well, Horner's score, it doesn't just play alongside the visuals. It like deepens them.
Okay.
Think about the Irish flute.
Yeah.
It represents Jack's world.
Okay.
His freedom,
Right.
That simpler life.
Yeah.
But then as things get worse, the music changes.
Oh, it does.
You hear those strings.
Yeah.
That sense of doom coming.
Like it's foreshadowing what's going to happen.
Exactly. Even when things seem okay on screen.
Yeah. And speaking of creating that experience, the analysis also mentioned the sound design.
Oh, yeah.
Those small sounds like the creaking. It builds so much tension.
It does.
And then that contrast between the chaos of the sinking and the silence underwater.
Oh, that's powerful.
It really is.
The sound design is masterful.
I agree.
Remember that scene where Rose is looking for Jack?
For the iceberg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The music fades out.
Yeah.
All you hear is the ship groaning.
Oh, yeah.
People shouting.
It's terrifying.
It creates this sense of dread and urgency.
Yeah, like you're right there with her.
And then underwater, it's silent.
Yeah.
Except for those muffled cries. It emphasizes how huge the ocean is.
Yeah.
And how final the tragedy is.
And beyond the technical stuff, Titanic also explores some big themes, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The analysis mentioned class disparity, social injustice, human hubris.
Yeah, it's all there.
What resonates most with you?
I think the setting, the Titanic itself, this supposedly unsinkable ship.
Right.
It's like a mini version of society.
Okay.
That contrast between first class and steerage.
Yeah.
It shows the inequality.
Oh, the time.
Yeah, and that's what makes Jack and Rose's love so important.
Right, because they overcome those boundaries.
Exactly. It's like a glimmer of hope.
For a better world.
Yeah, a more just world.
And it also shows the danger of arrogance, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like thinking we can control nature.
This belief that the Titanic couldn't sink.
It's a powerful message and still relevant today.
Totally. The unsinkable Titanic becomes a symbol of human overconfidence.
Thinking we're invincible.
That even our greatest creations can be destroyed.
And then there's the water itself.
Oh, the water.
Yeah.
It's everywhere in the film.
Symbolic, right. The analysis mentioned that.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Water is both luxurious and destructive.
Right, like the pool in first class. It's a symbol of wealth.
But then the Atlantic.
Yeah, the icy water.
It destroys everything.
It's a reminder that nature is powerful.
It can give and take away?
Exactly. Like the human experience.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, we have the capacity for both.
Creation and destruction.
Exactly.
And then when Rose drops the necklace,
oh, yeah.
part of the ocean,
into the sea?
It's like she's letting go.
Yes, of the past.
The obsession with wealth.
And choosing to remember love instead.
Wow, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, it has a whole new meaning.
We've talked about so much.
I know.
The filmmaking, the themes, the symbolism.
Titanic is a complex film.
It really is, and it stays with you.
It does.
Long after it's over.
I think that's why people still connect with it, even after all these years.
Why do you think that is? What makes it so enduring?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's like, why are we still so drawn to this story?
Yeah, like what is it about Titanic that makes it so timeless, you know?
Well, I think part of it is that it's like a window into a lost world.
Okay.
That era of opulence, you know?
Yeah, the grandeur.
Yeah, and the film captures that so beautifully.
Right.
Maybe there's a part of us that kind of misses that.
That romanticizes it.
Yeah, even if it was a complicated time, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because like most of us weren't even alive then.
Exactly.
But it still feels nostalgic.
It does, doesn't it?
But Titanic doesn't shy away from the harsh stuff either, right?
No, not at all.
It shows us that we're not infallible. That life is fragile.
Like even the biggest, most advanced things we create,
yeah,
they can be destroyed by nature.
It's a humbling message.
It is. And I think that's what makes it timeless.
It makes you think about control, you know?
Yeah, like how much control do we really have?
Right, and maybe there's something cathartic about watching a tragedy like that.
Oh, interesting.
Like we can confront our own mortality.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean.
But safely, from a distance.
Right, like we can experience those emotions.
The fear, the grief.
Without actually going through it.
Yeah, and maybe that makes us appreciate life more.
I think so.
The connections we have.
Yeah, definitely.
As we've been talking about all this, the love story, the history, the visuals, the music.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. It makes me realize Titanic is about so much more than just a shipwreck.
It really is. It stays with you.
It makes you think.
It does, doesn't it?
Why do you think it has that power?
That's a good question. I think it taps into something universal.
Okay.
Those human experiences, love, loss, hope.
Overcoming obstacles.
Yeah, it's a story that just makes us feel things.
Deeply.
And it makes us think critically.
It does.
Maybe even re-examine our own values.
You know, the analysis really highlighted that that Titanic is a cautionary tale.
About hubris.
Yeah, and the power of love.
Even in the face of tragedy.
And it makes us think about society.
Social structures.
Class, privilege.
Yeah, it's still relevant today.
It's amazing how a film set over 100 years ago
I know.
can still speak to us now.
It really shows you the power of storytelling.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Titanic,
Yeah.
what do you think is its most enduring legacy?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Is it the romance, the visuals, the history, or something else entirely?
I think that's up to each viewer, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone takes away something different.
That's true.
But for me, I think Titanic shows us how powerful stories can be.
Okay.
They connect us to the past, make us think about the present.
And inspire us to build a better future.
Exactly. It's a film that stays with you.
It makes you ask questions.
It does.
See the world differently.
Maybe even change it.
Beautifully said. Well, on that note, we'll leave everyone to contemplate this cinematic masterpiece.
It's a good one.
It is. Thanks for...
All right, everybody, get ready to dive into some Titanic trivia. You guys send in some really cool stuff from this article, Curiosities about Titanic, 1997. And honestly, I had no idea about a lot of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
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 Like, did you know Titanic might not actually be the deadliest maritime disaster in history. We're going to get into that.
Interesting.
And so much more.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. So first up, let's talk about James Cameron.
Okay.
I mean, this guy directed the movie.
Right.
But he also dove down to the actual Titanic wreck.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Like that's next level commitment.
That's intense. It really is. And these weren't just like, quick little trips down there. We're talking intense deep sea expeditions requiring, sophisticated submersibles, meticulous planning. It's not a walk in the park down there.
Yeah.
The pressure, the darkness, the challenges of maneuvering around. It's almost like space exploration in its technical complexity and risk.
Whoa. I never even thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's a good point.
So, okay, to bring this back to the movie, those opening scenes where we see the Titanic on the ocean floor.
Yeah.
That's actual footage from his dives.
You got it. Cameron just seamlessly blended his real-life expedition footage with the fictional narrative of the film.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be so expensive.
Right. And honestly, I think it's a stroke of genius. It just adds this undeniable layer of authenticity to the film. Imagine being an audience member back in 1997, seeing those images for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
You're just transported right to the wreck site.
Totally. You feel like you're there.
You're right there.
Okay, this next one. This detail completely blew my mind.
Okay.
Every single extra in Titanic.
What?
Every person in the background.
Wow.
Was given a name, a backstory, and a motivation.
No way.
Yes.
That is incredible.
Isn't that wild?
I mean, that is such a testament to Cameron's vision. It wasn't just about filling the frame with bodies. It was about creating a living, breathing world. I read somewhere that one extra even based his backstory on a real survivor's account.
Oh, wow.
It makes you wonder, did Cameron encourage this level of immersion?
Yeah.
And, could this detailed backstory, even if it's never explicitly stated, affect how those extras carried themselves on set?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like maybe it subtly influenced their interactions, their reactions to things. Maybe that's part of what makes the film feel so alive and so real.
Exactly. Right. It's those subtle details that just add so much richness to the tapestry of the film.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, now for a story that's both impressive and, well, a bit crazy.
Okay.
Kate Winslet, played Rose, insisted on doing those freezing water scenes without a wetsuit.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah.
Talk about dedication. But it also kind of makes you think about some of the on-set safety concerns.
Oh, absolutely.
Hypothermia is nothing to mess with.
Right. Like, I admire her commitment.
Yeah.
But makes you think about the line between commitment to a role and not putting yourself in harm's way.
It's a tricky balance. You're totally right.
All right, speaking of memorable moments, who could forget the iconic scene?
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Where Rose and Jack are at the bow of the ship shouting, "I'm flying!"
Yes.
And to think that wasn't even in the script.
Oh, really?
It was a moment of pure improvisation.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
I had no idea.
It's such a powerful scene, so full of joy and freedom.
And honestly, I think that's partly because of its spontaneity. There's something about improvisation in film that can capture such a raw, genuine emotion.
Yeah.
That sometimes a carefully scripted line just can't do.
Right.
Like, remember, here's looking at you, kid from Casablanca.
Yeah.
Totally improvised.
That's right. It's incredible how these unplanned moments can become the most iconic parts of a film.
Totally. It just shows you the power of collaboration and trusting the creative process.
Okay, are you ready for a little bit of a reality check? Remember how I said at the beginning that Titanic might not have been the deadliest maritime disaster?
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, it turns out the sinking of the Wilhelm Gustloff in 1945 actually claimed far more lives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's a tragic event that sadly doesn't get as much attention as the Titanic. It happened during the final months of World War II and involved thousands of German refugees fleeing the advancing Soviet army. Wow, I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, it's a prime example of how some historical events, especially those that are maybe more complicated or challenge our understanding of things, can kind of get overshadowed by more familiar narratives.
Yeah.
The Wilhelm Gustloff sinking raises all sorts of questions.
Oh, yeah.
About how we choose to remember history,
right? Whose
stories get told, and why some tragedies resonate more than others.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Like, how much don't we know? What other stories are out there waiting to be discovered and understood?
Exactly. I mean, that's the beauty of history. There's always more to explore and, uncover and discuss.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So From James Cameron's incredible expeditions to the detail of those extras' backstories,
Right.
the dedication of Kate Winslet, the magic of improvisation,
Yeah.
and the sobering reality of the Wilhelm Gustloff.
Yeah.
We've really gone deep on this
We
one.
have.
I think the biggest takeaway,
I agree.
there's always more to learn.
Yeah.
Never stop being curious. Never stop digging deeper.
100%.
So after learning about the Wilhelm Gustloff, what other hidden historical events are you guys curious about now? Keep those questions coming and keep exploring.
Absolutely.